So 3D, 4D, and 5D. Now, I would like to talk about the origin of it, and then I'm going to talk about what the question is. So, the origin of how you said everyone, others, how they all, talk about that. It's important with all these, anything that's common knowledge. If you are not inspired to go within and ask yourself and you don't get any answers by yourself, what you should do parallel is to look at the origin of it. And so the origin of this is a combination of things. So obviously, people are taking from physics, which is not helpful because physics is and was created, just like any other scientific thing, so that you can measure things and explore in those measurements and get a desired outcome in a repeatable way and create a fact, if that makes sense, something that people can all agree on. And so when I if I were to go into science, I would be gladly doing that. Or if I'm meeting someone, I will, say what time it is, right? But when we are speaking about infinity or we're speaking about things within ourselves, it's so infinite and so vast that using scientific terms is not helpful. I would go with naming it, because if you think about it, you can't get very far. Because if you're like, okay, 3D is this thing that they say in physics, but then how does that have to do with like what's going on, right? So that's one of them. The other one is there is a channeling thing called the Law of One. And it is, and when people do channeling things, especially in the 90s when they did this, that people make it sound like you have to do it's something they still to this day people act like all the things in spirituality is something that you're not already doing. And that's all I teach is that it's not really even teaching, it's telling people that you're already doing it and why and how. And there's different processes of how to realize that you're already doing it in your style and things like that. So in the Law of One, they talk about densities, and they're not dimensions. So they talk about densities. And density makes more sense if you think about it in an evolutionary way, because that's the conversation they were having. They were talking about consciousness and they talked about animals, they talked about all these different things. It's still not correct when you look in a bigger scale, but from a human perspective, the densities make more sense. So that is what it comes from, right? So I absolutely am not talking about that. I will never talk about 3D, 4D, or 5D because it has nothing to do with what is within me or within others. Now, if someone is holding on to that, I recommend letting go and finding your own way of describing something, because what those are attached to is mixed up. Because even those people who talk about it, they don't even know the origin of it in the first place. Or even if they do, they just forget about it while they're talking. So in the two videos, this video that you found me on, there's another video, and there's also some new ones and I put them in the saved folders. So if you go on the top of my page and you look for the saved folders, it's called, I call it the Infinite Mechanics. And so I talk about that in there. And I recommend looking at all of those. I recommend looking at my public things that I have available all over the place if you look in, the place. And also my hundreds of videos that I have had over the years talking about stuff. So I recommend looking at those. I also have 20-minute sessions that are affordable. So if you guys are interested in that, if you have one question, I'm open those, because I don't want people to have any excuses to not need, if they need help, it's doable, right? The other ones are for people who are ready to map out their infinity. So that's a bit different. And again, they can do whatever they want because that's a big umbrella, right? But it's for people who are doing that. They probably already know things about themselves, but they haven't like realized what they can bring to the table. Like, who are they? Like, what can they do that's not already here, if that makes sense. So that's usually what those are for. And also the other things I have available, you can ask me. But yeah, so That's not what I'm talking about. And when I talk about those three realities, I even talk about it a lot on my page. I talk about that. And remember, all the things I'm talking about are models. They are models for that specific conversation I'm having. So if it doesn't apply to everything. So like it's not literally those. Like you don't go in a dimension or whatever. It is the vibe, if that makes sense. It is the identification for humans. So for me, when I look at it and I interact with it, I don't have to go like I don't have to look at it that way. But to explain it for someone who has never even looked at it, and offer it so people can explore, it's the easiest way to do it is to put them in little three things. And they're not numbered. It's just that there are three styles. And the reason why I talk about this is when I go deeper with my clients and the classes that we do, this kind of is a good it's like it's a good place to kind of like build your foundation, because if you are going by what other people say, like you're comparing something one person said to someone else said, that's kind of defeating the purpose, right? It's like, why, like, who cares what I say? Who cares what the other person says? What should be important is that that person that you've seen is resonating with you so much that you are like, you just are inspired to go within. So that's when you know it's good information. So it also could be a reframe. So it could be that people are working on those things still. But yeah, if it's a reframe, it's going to be basically you're going to have to reframe it that I'm not going to compare it to another thing. I'm going to compare it to inside. Like I'm going to go inside and say, okay, what did I see when I listened to this video? What kind of memories did I get? And if it was that 3D, 4D, 5D, maybe have a look and see, why am I referring to that? By doing that, even if it is something that already exists, you asked yourself why. And so you get to know a part of yourself that still is holding on to those. And why are they holding on to those? Maybe it means you need to look into that and get the origin. So in this case, maybe it was you asking me this. So maybe you asked me this and then I said this. So then you can know more and, you know, empower yourself and actually think about, what do I want to call these things? Why are they even numbered? Like, right? Because it doesn't make sense, right, when you're doing it for yourself. For example, this dimension, I call it a dimension because of the way that I've set it up, but you don't absolutely don't have to call it a dimension. But the way I've set it up is different universes, there's different style of universes, and those are all different like origin beings and different beings of a process, which again, I'm going to do an origin video today. So hopefully I get a chance to do it. I wanted to do this first because I really want to make sure that when people, because I was hesitant to put these out there because I usually try to tailor to TikTok, but I was like, okay, there might be some people who, you know, they need to hear these kind of things to start exploring. So yeah, when you come to my page, it means you're ready to start exploring inside yourself. So that's why I'm doing these videos. But yeah, I hope that that makes sense. But yeah, so it's like I said, I'll say it again. So I have universes, I have dimensions, I have realms, I have realities, and what's another way to, it's organizing infinity, by the way. Let's see, is there anything else? For now, there's not anything else that I can think of, but those are the way I organize them because of how I talk about things, how I talk about the stories, how I talk about why this happened and this happened and this. Because if we don't have those languages, then we're like, what? So for example, when I do the video about origins, there's different types of origins that we have as a human, and it's different per perspective. If it's from a human perspective, it's going to be different than the perspective from the origin that's like an emanation, which is a type of origin. So there's like origin, source origins. There is like they're the source of a certain pattern, and then there's the emanations, and then there's branches, and then there's just so much. So that's why I want to get those things straight, because these are, I thought of these so that people can go explore them. It doesn't keep them in physics, which doesn't make sense because physics isn't you, it's something to create outside, right? It's like a art supplies. So I hope that helped. Yeah, if you want to help joining in the classes, let me know. Bye.